What is up, guys? So this is going to be my review for Legends of Tomorrow Season 3, Episode 8, titled Crisis on Earth X Part 4. So last episode, Episode 3, ended on a big cliffhanger. Luckily, we didn't have to wait long for the resolution of that cliffhanger. In the next episode, in the beginning of this episode, I feel like they didn't address Martin Stein being shot that much in the opening scene. They just put it aside mostly. He was just lying there and they were just talking to each other, fighting Red Tornado, which it was an awesome fight, the Red Tornado fight, the ending of that fight, but they didn't really notice that, other than Jax, they barely noticed that Martin Stein was shot, and then he got shot again. And later in the episode, in the entirety of the episode, there were a bunch of scenes that were incredible, like between Jax and Stein, them talking to each other right before Stein killed himself, basically. They were just really tear-jerking. Honestly, I teared up a little, not gonna lie. Like, there were so many scenes that were so sad. Like, scenes like where Jax and Stein are talking, scenes where after he died, Jax goes to his house and tells his wife and daughter that he died, and then the actual funeral, and scenes where the legends are thinking about him, the Rays looking at his picture. There's just a bunch of really sad scenes. It was so sad. Just the entire episode and last episode, the ending, the entirety just leading up to his death, it was so sad. Why couldn't they just let him die in peace? Like, why couldn't they let him retire for another 10, 15 years before he died of old age, or however long he would have lived? This is just so sad. By the way, I'm not complaining or anything. I was so sad. I wanted Martin Stein to retire, but that's not a bad thing. His death wasn't a bad thing. It was really, really emotional. It was done really well, but I just didn't want him to die. It was really sad. Okay, so I haven't actually addressed this till now, but the subplot of Overgirl dying, again, I said it wasn't the smartest move, making these Nazis a little bit sympathetic, but just the entirety of the crossover, Overgirl dying, Overgirl needing Supergirl's heart to live, it just got exhausting, honestly. I really didn't care in the end. Then there's just a bunch of moments and nothing really I could talk about until the big fight, the big team up shot right here, it looks awesome. It looked even better than we originally thought because Supergirl, Killer Frost, and the Ray came swooping in. But I don't know why they keep on excluding Cisco from these team up shots. He wasn't in the first one in Invasion. He wasn't in this one, and I don't know why. He was on the Wave Rider both of those times, which is really weird. But either way, this team up shot looks incredible. I don't know why Citizen Steel's in the middle. That doesn't really make that much sense, but it's a cool team up shot, especially when Killer Frost, Supergirl, and the Ray comes flying or sliding in. Although I would say it's not as cool as the Invasion team up shot. It was awesome. That one was awesome. This one was a little bit more underwhelming. Also, we didn't get like a full 2 or 3 seconds where we could look at them. It kept on cutting away, or we didn't get a full 2 or 3 seconds that we could look at them with Killer Frost, the Ray, and Supergirl there. So I just think the team up shot in Invasion was not even a little bit better. It was way better. Then we get the big fight of the crossover. We got 20 superheroes. I think it was 20 superheroes versus like 50 soldiers, Nazi soldiers who literally don't know how to do anything. And then just three Nazi supervillains. I feel like that's just not enough. We had Metallo, Red Tornado, and Prometheus on the poster. That is so much better. Like, you got 20 superheroes. It's just not a fair fight in the slightest. The Nazis don't stand a chance, and obviously that's a good thing, but the stakes aren't high in this fight. It's very enjoyable. It's a really enjoyable fight. The slow motion for the Flash, like the Flash versus Reverse Flash fight scene, was incredible. It makes me reminisce. It makes me want the Speedster battles back on the Flash. Granted, I don't want another Speedster main villain in this season. Maybe next season, but in this season, I think they could have had a recurring Speedster villain to fight the Flash like every 4 or 5 episodes, just so we can have those classic Speedster battles. that seems to be a little lacking on the Flash right now, just a little bit. Just because the fights, the speedster fight in this was awesome. Although he did let him go at the end, which didn't make sense at all. Like, why? It's the same thing that Killer Frost did, letting Ambient Black go just because they don't want to kill them. But you don't have to kill them, just lock them up. It doesn't make any sense. So that's that fight. And then there was the Green Arrow versus Dark Arrow fight, which it felt very generic. It was just a normal fight. It wasn't that special it was just not special. But then the Supergirl Overgirl fight was actually really cool. To them punching each other over and over again. The CGI actually looked pretty great. It felt a lot like the Zod versus Superman fight for Man of Steel, just with much worse CGI and without destroying buildings. It looked really cool. But even with all that, the villains were just not threatening at all, especially when they're up against so many superheroes. The Dominators weren't that threatening, but they were up against like 10 superheroes, not 20, so it was better. I don't know, it wasn't that much better because they were just all army fodder. They did nothing, but at least they looked scary. The Nazi soldiers are just so useless. They do nothing. All the bullets they fired, they landed 2 of them. The first one was on an old man who was running really slowly. The second one was on the same old man who was shot and was walking he was crawling, and he just got up. He was shot already. Those are the only 2 shots they made. So it just felt like the superheroes were, like I keep on saying, running through tissue paper, just tearing up tissue paper because these soldiers are so incompetent. Okay, so while the villains weren't that great and entertaining, the fight scene was awesome. It was just really enjoyable. It was just really, that's it. That's all I gotta say. It was enjoyable. It was fun to watch. It was a little underwhelming, sure, but it was still really, really fun. So the crossover ends on a low note, a really, really low note. It is the second worst moment in crossover history, the first being with Felicity. She seems to be the root of all these bad moments. Felicity giving Oliver crap about the son he just learned about an hour ago in the Vandal Savage crossover. That was the worst moment in crossover history. It's the worst moment in arrowverse history. It was so stupid. And this is the second worst. So, first of all, the scene starts off really great. They go get Diggle to actually formally marry Iris or legally marry Iris and Barry. And they have a really touching, nice scene where they give their vows to each other. It's nice. It's a great scene. But Felicity, being the bitch that she is physically unable to not make everything about herself. She gets jealous that Iris and Barry are having their moment and she isn't. So she says, "You know what? Forget everything I said about marriage in the past 3 episodes. I need to make everything about me. Let's get married, Oliver." And since Oliver is physically unable to say no to Felicity ever, he says, "You know what? That's a good idea. Let's interrupt Iris and Barry's moment and make this about us." And after 4 episodes of Felicity saying, "Hey, I don't want to marry you," and totally embarrassing Oliver in that scene in episode 1, Felicity saying that she doesn't want to marry Oliver for 4 episodes in a row, and then all that is made pointless by the scene. Granted, it was pointless already, but it's even more pointless now. She just changes her mind. What was the point of those scenes? What was the point of those scenes? Even if you do like this scene at the end, which is, like, if you do, that's insane, but it just renders the rest of the crossover Felicity parts useless and pointless. At least not when she's saving Supergirl and whatever. In episode 1 and 2, her scenes are pointless. They're just there to put, I don't know. I don't understand. I just don't understand these people. I'm talking about the writers and the Felicity shippers. I don't get it. I don't understand why you would... The writers, I don't understand why you would do this. Not only was this scene terrible, but it also made other scenes even worse than they already were. This crossover, I honestly was loving it until the end. There were some pretty bad moments, but I was loving it. I was really enjoying it. There were some really great emotional moments with Martin Stein. The action was great. The CGI was great. Everything was great except for one person who managed to almost ruin the crossover, and that's Felicity Smoak. In season 5, she was bearable, but season 6 comes around and makes her the worst. Somebody in the comments section said that I hated her too much, and I agree. Sometimes I feel that way too, but this is what I replied to him. I don't get the chance. Felicity does not give me the chance to stop hating her. She just doesn't, and she made this crossover go from being what could have been the best crossover ever with the best plot ever, like Crisis on Earth X. It's so interesting, much more interesting than Invasion should have ever been, but it's just worse. It's just worse than Invasion. This is not the best crossover. While it should have been, it's not because of Felicity. She didn't ruin it. It's definitely better than the Vandal Savage crossover, but she made it a hell of a lot worse. In conclusion, though, this episode was like 90% great, but then that last scene just totally threw me off, and the fact that it ended the episode also was just the worst. But again, it was just one scene. The rest of the episode was great. The fight scenes were really enjoyable, although the villains weren't that threatening. It was still really enjoyable and fun to watch. The CGI in the beginning with the Red Tornado and the Flash and Ray was great. The emotional moments were by far the best parts, though, with Martin Stein dying, his whole death. That whole storyline this episode was incredible. It's one of the saddest deaths in the arrowverse ever. But I don't know how to rate this episode. It was so good, but then it was bad. I cannot in good conscience give this episode a good score, knowing that Felicity and Oliver got married at the end. But I also can't give it a bad score because knowing how good the rest of the episode was, and I can't give it an average score because that would just look so average when this episode wasn't average. It was great until the end. So, and this might feel like a cop-out, I don't think I'm going to give this episode a rating. I can't. It was so good, but then it was so bad, and that giving it an average score feels wrong because it deserves a higher score. That last scene did it really dirty, so I'm not going to give this episode a rating. Let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.